So for this video, I wanted to do a kind of wearables showdown. Originally, I was going to do a straightforward review of my Huawei 4G Sport, which I've recently purchased. This is the 4G model, but I'll go into that shortly. Just kind of sizing comparison, I also have my old LG Urbane First Edition. Incidentally, this is one of the very first Android and, well, I think basically smartwatches in general that look like a regular watch. It is quite a big smartwatch in case you've not seen it, but because of the round shape and design, this was one of the first to market in terms of actually looking like a classic watch. You can compare that to the Huawei that we have here. And you can see it's much bigger, but that's mainly because of the bezel here, which doesn't rotate. However, this has a lot more functionality in terms of 4G, continuous heart rate, NFC payments, and I think its own GPS. So this was kind of one of the first edition Android 2 watches. This doesn't, however, have the Oreo updates anymore because LG have chosen not to support updating it anymore. So one of the reasons why I decided to go for the new Huawei was because this gets the new Oreo updates and kind of the slicker performance improvements. In terms of whether or not this was a good purchase, I like the fact that it's got 4G and its own GPS. I'm not sure actually how useful that even is. So unless you're actually running a lot and you're going to be without your phone for long periods of time, to be honest, this is not actually that useful in terms of functionality. The other wearable I have here is a Beike V10. I've not actually charged it because I decided just to kind of show this as an alternative. What I do like about, obviously, so this is kind of basically a cheap fitness band from China, and this represents one of the more technologically advanced fitness bands you can get at the moment, particularly because this has blood pressure monitoring and continuous heart rate monitoring and something like 7 days battery life, compared to the Huawei, which basically needs to be charged up overnight. And also the LG Urbane will need to as well. Incidentally, does do sleep tracking, but unless you're planning on charging it several times throughout the day to make sure that it will have enough battery power after you've been to sleep with it, so you may need to charge it up in the morning so you've got a full day's worth of power, it is quite annoying. So something like a fitness band might be a better option. Now, although the Huawei does do NFC payments, I do find this to be quite a painful experience because you do need to pattern unlock the phone, the watch. And as you can see here, the watch has detected that I've taken it off, and if I try to use any functionality, immediately you'll find it's asking me for a pattern unlock. So this is a security feature, so in case I drop the watch or leave it behind, because this comes with Android Pay, and for example you can make payments of several £100, because this is not like a contactless card. That's why it has the pattern unlock. But I do find that even though when you're wearing it, it does regularly ask you for the pattern unlock, and I do find that the NFC payment can be a bit hit and miss. So if you're in a queue trying to pay for a coffee quickly or something, then I do find it can be quite difficult to get your card details to come up and basically make a payment. So that's one of the kind of many criticisms of this. I mean, if you're out jogging, for example, then if you don't have your phone or your bank card with you, then you're not necessarily going to care about how long it takes for the card to register. Often I find that clicking the quick, so this is a quick button which I've set up to show the the card payment details. I do find that quite often this doesn't get triggered, or it takes several seconds for the card to initialize. So I've kind of gotten to the habit of basically when I'm standing in the queue, or a few moments, about 30 seconds or so before I'm ready to pay, I will try and basically initialize the card first, so I don't get caught out standing there jamming this button trying to get it to work. I would say about 50% of the time it does work, but also you'll find that actually reading the card reader will have a lot of trouble sometimes reading the actual smartwatch, and it does take a little longer to detect the payment being made. So you will need to hold your watch down for a lot longer than what you think you would. So if you've ever used NFC payments on your phone, you'll be used to the fact that you pretty much touch your phone and it will make a payment straight away. With the watch, you'll find that sometimes the reader doesn't read your watch correctly, or you're just not being patient enough with it. So that's all great. Bearing in mind this costs several £100s. I got this half price off of eBay, so that's why I bought it. But if you're in the UK, which may not be of interest to anyone outside of the UK, you can buy this BPay thing, which is basically an NFC chip add-on for basically smartwatches. And what this does is this is supplied by Barclays, and it connects to a phone app and allows you to do contactless payments. Now, this only cost about £8, and this cost about 20 or so. So bearing in mind, it is actually charged. That is actually incredible. I have literally I've not actually worn this for about 3 months now, and I'm surprised this has that much power left. So I'm quite surprised by that. I've obviously just switched it on. So you can obviously take the clasp off here, mount the BPay thing here on the wristband, and then use this as a contactless card. This apparently is completely waterproof, so you don't have to worry about damaging it. Doesn't need any sort of connection to the internet or anything. So this will only do up to £30. But it's amazing that this kind of combination of a very cheap fitness band from China, for me, outperforms the latest Android smartwatch at 10 times the price. I mean, this is actually quite amazing, other than the fact that it doesn't actually connect to your Android Pay or Samsung Pay or anything like that. So you are limited to a prepay account, although that is automatic. You are limited to £30 per transaction, but this always works. Absolutely, this always works. However, you will not be able to use it on normal watches. I tried very hard to get this to mount on this, but the bands are too thick. You even getting the clasp off, you will not be able to get over the straps here. And even in the marking material, they will show that this guy should be mounted here, but actually, when you come to pay, you can't actually get your wrist. If this guy is mounted here, you cannot get your wrist to the payment terminal. So I do find that actually is quite amazing that for such little money, these fitness bands are coming on amazingly. Incidentally, in case you've not seen my previous video, this has the new style charging port where you literally can just take off the band. You don't need a cradle, and you can charge this wherever. So if you're on holiday, or you're at a friend's house, or staying over somewhere, or in the office, and you realise that this needs charging, you don't have to be worried about whether or not this actually, you've remembered to bring your cradle. I do really recommend the Bakey V10. I've done a lot of research recently on fitness bands, and I do find that actually this is one of the better quality ones. I bought one of the Lenovo fitness bands that came out recently, and for some reason you have to look at your notifications sideways. So on the Bakey, what I didn't realize was this supports message push functionality. So if you're buying a fitness band from China, watch out for whether or not they support message push, because that means the actual WhatsApp messages or SMS messages will actually show up on the screen, and you can actually read the content of the message and not just see a little icon to say you have a message and then look at your phone. I do recommend the Bakey because they've actually bothered to show you the text in a portrait mode, which means you don't have to hold your arm at a funny angle to actually read it. So at the time when I reviewed this, I didn't realize how much better this is compared to other fitness bands. If you are going for other fitness bands, do pay special attention to what their smartphone app is. I have tried all sorts of smartphone apps, and they are generally all terrible. The one that comes with this, which is H-Band 2.0, is particularly good, but this does not have Google Fit support. The Huawei does, so you get heart rate being logged, footsteps being logged, and it's quite good to see all of that information in Google Fit. To be honest, all of that information in terms of health and fitness isn't particularly useful on a day-to-day basis, but it's nice it's there. So bear in mind, if you do get a Chinese fitness band, please download their smartphone app first, read the marketing description, and then check to see if you actually like the fitness band, because or the smartphone app provided, because even by the same manufacturer, they vary wildly, and you'll find that a lot of these fitness band apps, they're just clones of other apps, and they've quite often been badly done, and you can see a really nice piece of hardware being let down by just an awful piece of software. So don't be stuck by buying a cheap-ish, $30 smart band, and then being stuck with really awful software that either doesn't connect, doesn't have any functionality. Incidentally, this is the heart rate tracker that's now going off by itself. So this is the continuous heart rate tracking. And if you're not wearing this, this is really annoying if you're trying to get to sleep at night, because you've decided to not wear it, and then obviously you have this light going off. The Huawei one doesn't seem to ever do that, so I'm quite surprised by that. Also, actually, one other thing I do want to mention is this bezel. So, as I understand, you might be thinking, why do you have this bezel? What's the purpose of it? It doesn't rotate. I believe the LG Sport is the only one that does have a rotating bezel, because when this was invented, there was no support for rotating bezels. Now, why do we have all the numbering here? You can put this on a watch face. A lot of watch faces have numbering. So that kind of feels like it's wasting space. But for me, the reason why you have the bezel is because when you're making smartwatch, Android Pay payments, the bezel will basically protect the screen. So what's actually happening is you're making contact with the bezel and not the screen. So basically, for me, they've put it on there as a way of protecting the screen when you're trying to pay with a watch. That's the only reason why I think they've invented this bezel, because it's quite a large watch body, so I think they have enough space. Incidentally, I do find it's really comfortable to wear. When I first put it on, it's really light. It is made of plastic, unlike the Urbane here, which is stainless steel. Bear in mind, stainless steel is really heavy. If you've ever worn a titanium watch, compared to a stainless steel one, you will find that it is much heavier. But I do really find this really, really light. Sadly, it is a plastic strap. It doesn't feel the most durable, but actually I find that because it is really light and really comfortable, you kind of forget about how heavy it is or that you're wearing it. That's not much of an issue. Also, they do have this new style clasps here, so you can actually get the bands on and off. Incidentally, you will need to do that. You will need to remove the bands to put the 4G SIM card in this. Now, going back to whether or not this is worth the money, yes, it's great that it has 4G. Yes, it's great that I can make phone calls with it. I would recommend a pair of 4G earbuds or something if you're going to make a phone call. It does have a loudspeaker, but the sound quality is absolutely awful. Now, I think why this is a sport watch is because for me, the only time when you're going to be separated from your phone is when you're out jogging. So if you're running the 4G SIM card all of the time, you're going to be getting really appalling battery life. So luckily, the watch has the ability to basically automatically switch on the data connection in the 4G radio when it realizes that the watch is no longer in range of your phone. So you can set that to basically, I'm just going to go in connectivity and see if I can show you this. That way you're not draining the watch battery. So as we can see here, oh no, it's decided to disappear. That's rather helpful. Hang on. Let's see if I can get back to that. I don't know why I did that actually. So if I go into connectivity and go into mobile, you can see I have set this to automatic. So this basically means that when the watch is tethered to your phone via Bluetooth, it will automatically disable the 4G radio. And you really want to do that because this will not get anywhere near a day's worth of battery. Now, incidentally, in terms of data usage, I'm actually quite lucky enough to have a 200 megabyte SIM card, which you can get from 3 Mobile if you're in the UK, and they have a 200 megabyte data reward SIM card. And as you can see there, whilst that was still on camera, I've only used off about 2 megabytes worth of data. And the reason why I mention this is because if you have something like an Apple Watch and your carrier will likely support call mirroring via iPhone and the Apple Watch. So something like call mirroring basically allows you to receive phone calls on your watch instead of them being diverted from your phone. So that way you can be out and about, your phone doesn't pick up. The call mirroring will allow you to make phone calls and receive phone calls from your watch and basically share data and anything else in your data plan. This is partly because I think the Apple Watch has the eSIM system, whereas the Huawei 4G watch doesn't. Although rather confusingly on their website, they do have listed, I think, the eSIM and 4G SIM. So you kind of think that actually, well, this takes a regular SIM card and an eSIM card, but actually the eSIM is like a third version which does not take regular SIM cards. So anyone is watching this thinking, oh wait, hang on, this is an eSIM. This is actually the second edition, which only takes regular micro SIM cards, which is actually quite lucky because none of the networks that I'm aware of in Europe actually support eSIM, at least none in the UK. If you're in the UK, as far as I'm aware, you can only set up data sharing on an EE business account, which I seem to have for some reason, and that will cost you about £5 a month, and you can then use your data allowance from your phone contract. However, I don't think that's particularly great value because, as you can see, I've only used about 2 megabytes of data in the past few days. And that's mainly because there aren't actually really any watch apps on here. If you've got Google Play, then great, you can stream you can save and download your playlist directly to the watch. But if you've got something like Deezer or Spotify, certainly Deezer, you can't actually do that. There is a Deezer app, but you cannot download the the songs and store them on your watch, and you probably can't play them via the data connection either. So if you are buying this for running and going out jogging, you'll most likely need to have a plain music subscription to actually make the most out of this. So if you are going to be using a lot of data, don't forget this doesn't actually have a proper WhatsApp app or a Viber app as far as I can tell. You can reply to messages, but you can't start new ones. So for me, I'm not sure why anyone would really need to buy this, particularly as how expensive this watch actually is. When you think about on a day-to-day, when am I going to be away from my smartphone? And even then, how do I get a data contract for this? If I want to call someone from it, it's going to be coming from another number. EE are apparently going to be supporting call mirroring, or what they call to be a smart number on Android at some point in the year. Whether or not that's true, I don't know. We'll see. But I do feel like these 4G smartwatches have very, very limited, times you can actually make use of them. I was looking at the Samsung Gear S3 originally because that has multi-day battery life and is a much newer CPU. For example, the S3 has a 10 nanometer CPU, which means it's been fabricated and designed very recently, in the last year or so. However, the Android Wear ones, I think their CPUs date back to 2015 and are not designed for smartwatches, and that's why you only get 1 day of battery. However, the Samsung smartwatches have very limited app support, and I believe that the S4 is actually going to ditch the Samsung OS and actually move towards Android Wear. So I bought this because this is the only 4G smartwatch that was affordable in the UK and was actually going to have updated software, unlike the Urbane. So for me, I think that if you're on the fence about buying one, I'd wait till the end of the year when the latest generation of smartwatches come out. If the S4 comes out on Android Wear, then that would be amazing because you're going to get multi-day battery life with a very modern CPU, and I think they're going to be putting blood pressure and all sorts of stuff in there, particularly because obviously a $25 fitness band can do blood pressure nowadays, and all sorts of stuff. So I do recommend waiting. I didn't, because I got this half price. I would have waited till the end of the year, but I decided that actually there will probably be double the price or cost $300, and I didn't really fancy spending that now or later on. So I really got this because I really did want to be able to pay, using my watch. But to be honest, now that I've experienced all of the trouble and the fact that, that the card doesn't initialize straight away, or the reader doesn't read the watch properly, or you're constantly having to unlock the smartwatch. Incidentally, you have to do a pattern unlock because although it does support typing in a PIN code, that's really fiddly on such a small screen. Speaking of small screens, actually, coming from an Urbane, I'm not sure how well you can tell. This watch the screen on this is ever so slightly smaller than the Urbane and other similar Android Wear watches. But to be honest, you don't really look at the screen for that long. You're using it to glance at your messages or glance at, what trackers, on your playlist is currently playing. So for me, the smaller screen wasn't too much of a deal breaker. The plastic body, again, wasn't so bad because it is comfortable on. But, if you're paying full price for the, for the Wowie or something similar, I would not go near it for the time being, just because, some small things like the Google Assistant taking time. So if I want to show that to you, of course, pattern unlock again because I'm not wearing it. But stuff like how long the Google Assistant takes to initialize. So you hold this down. Tell me a joke. Tell me a joke. Yeah, so you can see it's not that reliable.
Here we go. You know the problem with grapes these days? People just aren't raising them right.
That was awful. That was pretty awful. And but you can see how long this takes to initialize and respond to you. The fact that I was already convinced that had basically not heard my command and pretty much given up on it kind of shows how of an infuriating experience this can be. When it's great you have got a voice assistant, but it's just not quick enough to react to you. Maybe when the next generation of smartwatches come out, maybe the S4 might be a lot faster to respond to you. So they're really nice features, but I think they are massively undermined by the fact that the technology just isn't fast enough and it's not mature enough to basically respond to the fact that, you know, I want to make a payment immediately. I don't want to wait for and fiddle around my watch, and quite often I do actually have to get my my smartphone back out to actually make the payment because the watch is just taking too long to respond. So if you're wondering about whether or not you want a smartwatch or a fitness band of some sort, I would just import something like the Bakey V10. You know, you don't need to spend hundreds of dollars on a Fitbit or something similar, which actually doesn't do much more, and you certainly don't need to spend hundreds of dollars on a smartwatch. You know, if you're really you just can't wait and you really need a gadget right now, I would recommend getting something like, you know, the Bakey, just to tide you over, and maybe wait for the S4 or something similar, and then, you know, wait until the end of the year whilst these things have kind of caught up a bit and respond a lot faster. So that's kind of my wrap up. If you do have any questions in terms of, you know, what kind of features to look out for when buying a fitness band, or how does the Wowie watch, you know, other niggles that I've had with it, please ask in the comments and I'll do my best to answer all of them.